My perfect sister tried to trap my boyfriend with a fake pregnancy. Now she's homeless and I'm engaged to his boss. I always thought my sister Ellie was the golden child of our family. Beautiful, smart, the one my parents bragged about at every opportunity. Meanwhile, I was the responsible but less remarkable sister, the one who cleaned up messes but never quite shined as brightly. At least that's what our family dynamic taught me to believe. But last year, everything changed when Ellie crossed a line that destroyed our relationship forever. She tried to steal my boyfriend of 3 years by faking a pregnancy after a party where I'd introduced them. The fallout was catastrophic for everyone involved, especially her. Now she's homeless and begging for my help, while I'm engaged to my boyfriend's boss, a plot twist neither of us saw coming. The family that once treated me as second best is now desperate for my assistance, but I'm not sure I can ever forgive what they enabled. Growing up with Ellie was like living in a constant shadow. She's 2 years younger than me but somehow always seemed to be steps ahead in life. While I worked hard for B+ grades, she effortlessly brought home straight A's. When I struggled through awkward teen years with braces and acne, she blossomed into this gorgeous, confident young woman who had boys lining up to take her to dances. Our parents never explicitly said they preferred her, but their actions spoke volumes. Her achievements warranted special dinners and proud phone calls to relatives. My accomplishments received polite nods and quick "that's nice, honey" responses before the conversation inevitably turned back to Ellie's latest triumph. Despite this, I loved my sister. We shared a bedroom until I was 16, and though we bickered like typical siblings, I genuinely wanted her to succeed. I just wished my parents could be equally proud of both their daughters. By the time I finished college with my accounting degree, Ellie was already working at a prestigious marketing firm, dating executives, and living in a sleek downtown apartment I could never afford on my entry-level salary. I stayed in our hometown, found a decent job at a mid-sized construction management company, and slowly built my life. My parents didn't hide their disappointment that I hadn't moved to a bigger city or pursued a more impressive career. "Your sister is already being considered for a promotion," they'd say during Sunday dinners, as if her success somehow highlighted my inadequacy. Then I met James. He was the new project manager at my company, smart, kind, and surprisingly interested in me. With his sandy brown hair, green eyes, and quiet confidence, I couldn't believe someone like him would notice me. On our first date, I kept waiting for the moment he'd realize I wasn't anything special and make an excuse to leave early. Instead, we talked until the restaurant closed, and he walked me to my car with a gentle kiss goodnight that left me floating. Our relationship progressed naturally and wonderfully. For the first time in my life, I felt truly seen and valued. James appreciated my practical nature, my dry sense of humor, my attention to detail, all the things my family had dismissed as boring. He made me feel beautiful without trying to change me, and I flourished under his attention. Of course, I wanted James to meet my family. After 6 months of dating, I invited him to my parents' anniversary dinner. I warned him about my perfect sister, trying to play it off as a joke, but he squeezed my hand and said, "I'm not interested in perfect. I'm interested in you." The dinner went exactly as I'd feared. My mother fussed over Ellie's new haircut, my father boasted about her recent promotion, and James sat politely nodding through stories of Ellie's achievements. I noticed my sister watching him throughout dinner with an interest that made me uncomfortable. She asked pointed questions about his job, his ambitions, his background. At first, I thought she was just being her usual charming self, but there was something predatory in her attention that set off alarm bells. "Your boyfriend is gorgeous," she whispered when we were alone in the kitchen. "How did you manage that?" The question stung, implying as it did that James was somehow out of my league. "We met at work. We connected. That's how relationships usually happen, Ellie." She laughed. "Don't be so sensitive. I'm complimenting you." I changed the subject, but the uneasy feeling lingered. Over the next few months, Ellie suddenly became interested in family gatherings she'd previously avoided. She'd show up looking stunning, always managing to engage James in one-on-one conversations while I was busy helping our mother or talking to other relatives. James never gave me reason to worry, always including me in their discussions or finding his way back to my side, but Ellie's intentions were becoming increasingly obvious. "Your sister's nice," James would say, oblivious to her machinations, "but she talks about herself a lot, doesn't she?" I loved him even more for noticing what my parents never had. 3 months after James and I moved in together, a step that had my mother questioning if I was rushing things, my company threw a holiday party. James was hesitant about inviting Ellie when she called asking if she could join us, networking opportunities, she claimed, but I didn't want to seem petty or insecure. I assured him it would be fine. That night remains burned into my memory. I caught a stomach bug and spent most of the evening making trips to the bathroom. James checked on me regularly, offering to take me home, but I insisted he enjoy the party since it was important for his career. During one of my longer bathroom visits, I returned to find both James and Ellie missing. My colleague mentioned they'd stepped outside for some air because Ellie wasn't feeling well either. I found them in the parking lot. James was steadying my sister, who appeared to be swaying dramatically. When he saw me, relief washed over his face. "She's had too much to drink," he explained. "She was looking for you, but then nearly collapsed. I was just about to call you." Ellie's eyes narrowed at me through her drunken haze, and I knew immediately she was faking. I'd seen Ellie genuinely drunk before. She became giggly, not helpless. This was a performance. "I'll take her home," I said flatly. The drive to Ellie's apartment was tense. Once we were alone, she dropped the act entirely, sitting up straight and checking her makeup in her compact mirror. "You know, your boyfriend is really sweet," she said casually. "The way he rushed to help me. Most men wouldn't be so gentlemanly." "What are you doing, Ellie?" She shrugged. "Making conversation. Don't be so paranoid." I dropped her off without another word, but the knot in my stomach had nothing to do with the stomach bug. When I got home, James was already there, making me tea and setting up a movie. He held me close that night, completely unaware of the storm brewing. 2 weeks later, on Christmas Eve, Ellie made her move. We were all at our parents' house, opening the traditional Christmas Eve gift, always new pajamas to wear that night. The doorbell rang, and my father returned from answering it with a confused James in tow. "He says Ellie invited him," my father explained, looking to my sister. I frowned. "I told you James and I were having dinner with his parents tonight. We were going to come by tomorrow." Ellie smiled apologetically. "I thought it would be a nice surprise. I wanted the whole family together." She turned to James. "Didn't I mention it when I called you yesterday?" The room went silent. "You called James?" I asked quietly. "Just about a work thing," she said dismissively. "A friend is looking to build a house, and I wanted to refer them to your company." James looked uncomfortable. "She did call, but I don't remember any invitation. I'm sorry for the confusion. I can go." "No, stay." My mother insisted. "We have plenty of food." I pulled James aside while my mother set an extra place at the table. "Why didn't you mention Ellie called you?" He looked genuinely perplexed. It was a 2-minute conversation. She asked about construction quotes. I gave her our office number. It didn't seem important enough to mention. I wanted to believe him, but doubt had begun to creep in, cultivated by years of being told I wasn't quite good enough compared to my sister. Dinner was uncomfortable. Ellie kept creating reasons to touch James's arm or shoulder, laughing too loudly at his mild jokes, all while throwing me triumphant glances. My parents seemed oblivious, as usual, to her behavior. As we were clearing dessert plates, Ellie clinked her glass. "I have an announcement to make." My heart froze as everyone turned to her expectantly. "I've been keeping a secret," she said, her eyes fixed on James. "And I can't keep it any longer." The room fell silent. My mother looked excited, probably anticipating news of a promotion or exotic vacation. My father smiled indulgently. James looked confused. "I'm pregnant," Ellie declared, her hand moving to rest on her flat stomach. My mother gasped with delight while my father started sputtering about how his little girl was having a baby. Only James and I remained still, staring at her in shock. "And?" my mother prompted, looking around. "Who's the father? Are you seeing someone we don't know about?" Ellie's eyes never left James's face. "It happened at the company Christmas party," she said softly. "We didn't mean for it to happen." The room exploded. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father stood up so quickly his chair toppled backward. And I couldn't breathe. "That's impossible," James said firmly, standing up. "Nothing happened between us. Nothing." "You were drunk," Ellie insisted, tears welling in her eyes. "You might not remember. When we went outside." "I wasn't drunk," James countered. "I had one beer the entire night. I was taking care of my girlfriend who was sick. We talked for maybe 3 minutes in that parking lot, surrounded by colleagues who were leaving. This is insane." My father was advancing toward James with his fists clenched. My mother was crying. And all I could do was stare at my sister, at the familiar smug expression barely concealed beneath her victim act. "How could you?" I whispered, finding my voice at last. "How could you make up such a horrible lie?" Ellie's face hardened. "I'm not lying. Your boyfriend took advantage of me when I was vulnerable." "When exactly did this happen, Ellie?" I demanded, furious now. "During the 3 minutes in the parking lot with dozens of witnesses? Or during the 2-minute phone call about construction quotes? You're choosing him over your own sister?" she cried, turning to our parents. "See how she treats me. When I'm carrying her boyfriend's child?" My mother moved to comfort Ellie, shooting me a disappointed look. "How can you be so cruel? Your sister needs support right now." "She's lying," I shouted. "James never touched her." But it didn't matter what I said. For my parents, Ellie could do no wrong. They believed her instantly, without question, without even a moment's consideration of James's character or my 3-year relationship with him. James and I left amid shouted accusations and threats from my father. In the car, James was shaking. "I swear to you, nothing happened. Nothing. I would never cheat on you, especially not with your sister." I believed him. Something in Ellie's performance had been off, too practiced, too convenient. "I know," I assured him. "I know you wouldn't." We spent a miserable Christmas day in our apartment, ignoring calls from my parents. Ellie took her performance to social media, posting vague but pointed comments about family betrayal and standing by her unborn child no matter what. Mutual friends started calling, asking what was happening. The story was spreading. James was devastated. "This could ruin my reputation," he said, scrolling through the mounting comments on Ellie's posts. "People at work will hear about this." I knew what we had to do. She's not pregnant. She can't maintain this lie forever. We need proof. We decided to wait it out. Ellie would have to produce evidence eventually, doctor's visits, ultrasounds, an actual baby bump. In the meantime, we documented everything. I saved every message, every social media post. James started recording all phone calls after Ellie tried calling him repeatedly, leaving tearful voicemails about accepting responsibility. The next month was excruciating. My parents called daily, alternating between begging me to accept reality and condemning me for abandoning my sister. Ellie showed up at our apartment twice, once to give James another chance to do the right thing, and once to tearfully tell me she never meant to hurt me, but these things happen. Each time, her stomach remained suspiciously flat for someone supposedly entering her second trimester. The turning point came unexpectedly. James's boss, Richard, called him into his office one morning. Richard was an imposing figure in the company, brilliant, demanding, and fair. James assumed he was about to be fired due to the rumors, which had indeed reached the workplace. Instead, Richard offered unexpected support. "My ex-wife pulled something similar with her affair," he told James. "Used a fake pregnancy to try to extort money. I recognized the pattern." Richard, it turned out, had resources. He suggested a plan: invite Ellie to a settlement discussion at a neutral location, where she would believe James was preparing to acknowledge paternity and provide financial support. The meeting would be recorded, with Richard present as James's advisor. I was skeptical, but desperate enough to try anything. James called Ellie, his voice carefully modulated to sound defeated and resigned. "We need to talk about the baby," he said. "About support payments and arrangements." Ellie agreed immediately, suggesting a coffee shop the very next day. The meeting was a masterclass in self-destruction. Ellie arrived wearing a loose top over what appeared to be a small pillow, her first attempt at faking a baby bump. Richard introduced himself simply as James's colleague, recording equipment hidden but active. "Before we discuss numbers," Richard began smoothly, "we'll need verification of the pregnancy, of course. Medical records, confirmation of paternity." Ellie shifted uncomfortably. "I don't see why that's necessary. James knows he's the father." "Nevertheless, it's standard procedure," Richard continued. "We'll need documented proof of pregnancy from your OB/GYN, and we'll schedule a paternity test as soon as medically advisable." "That's invasive," Ellie protested. "Those tests can harm the baby." "Modern non-invasive prenatal paternity tests can be performed safely from 7 weeks, Richard countered. "Since you're claiming to be over 3 months along, there should be no issue." Ellie's eyes darted between them. "I'm not comfortable with that." "Then there will be no support payments," Richard said firmly. "No acknowledgement of paternity without proof." What happened next exceeded our wildest expectations. Ellie, cornered and desperate, tried to salvage her plan. "Fine, there's no baby yet," she admitted with a dismissive wave. "But there could have been. James and I did sleep together." "We have that recorded now," Richard noted calmly. "The admission that you fabricated a pregnancy." Ellie's face drained of color. "You can't record me without permission." "Ohio is a one-party consent state for recordings," Richard informed her. "Only one person in the conversation needs to consent, and all 3 of us at this table did." "You tricked me," she hissed, yanking at her shirt where the pillow was visibly shifting. "Just as you attempted to trick James, his employer, your sister, and your parents," Richard replied. "The difference is, our deception broke no laws. Yours, however, constitutes defamation at minimum. Potentially criminal fraud if you had accepted any payments under this pretense." Ellie stood up so quickly her chair toppled backward. "You'll regret this," she spat before storming out, the pillow slipping further down with her jerky movements. "I wasn't present for this exchange, but James and Richard played me the recording that evening. I sat in stunned silence, relief washing over me like a physical force. We had proof. Incontrovertible, recorded proof of Ellie's lies." "What now?" I asked. Richard's plan continued to unfold. He helped us draft a cease and desist letter from a lawyer friend, demanding Ellie retract her statements publicly and privately. The letter detailed the legal consequences she would face if she persisted in her defamation, including the recording we now possessed. Simultaneously, we sent the recording to my parents. I included a brief message: "This is who your favorite daughter really is. I don't expect an apology, but I thought you should know the truth." The fallout was nuclear. My parents called, my mother sobbing, my father uncharacteristically quiet. They had confronted Ellie, who finally admitted her deception but blamed it on being in love with James and a momentary lapse in judgment. She expected them to forgive her immediately, as they always had. To her shock, they didn't. "We raised her better than this," my mother kept saying. I don't understand how she could do something so terrible. I had no sympathy for their distress. You've always excused her behavior, I reminded them. You've always favored her, no matter what she did. Why are you surprised that she thought she could get away with this too? They tried to deny it, of course. They claimed they'd always loved us equally, that I was misinterpreting their actions. But the damage was done. I couldn't unhear the doubt in their voices when they'd instantly believed Ellie over me, couldn't unfeel the pain of their immediate assumption that James was guilty and I was being naive. I need time, I told them. I can't just pretend this didn't happen. Meanwhile, Ellie's life imploded spectacularly. The retraction she posted on social media, clearly written by our lawyer, was humiliating in its completeness. She admitted to fabricating the pregnancy, harassment, and to deliberately attempting to damage James's reputation and destroy our relationship. Former friends and colleagues abandoned her in droves. Her employer, concerned about the potential liability of employing someone with such questionable ethics, placed her on probation. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard she was spiraling, drinking too much, missing work, lashing out at anyone who mentioned the incident. I felt no satisfaction in her downfall, only a profound sadness for what might have been if she hadn't been so determined to take what was mine. 3 months passed. Spring turned to summer. James and I began rebuilding our life, cautiously reconnecting with friends who'd been uncertain during the scandal. I maintained limited contact with my parents, brief phone calls, no visits. Ellie reached out several times with tearful apologies that somehow always included excuses and deflections. I didn't respond. The most unexpected development was my evolving relationship with Richard, James's boss. What had started as professional assistance during our crisis evolved into genuine friendship. Richard began including us in small dinner parties, inviting us to industry events. He was 15 years older than us, divorced with no children, and seemed to enjoy our company. For my part, I was deeply grateful for his intervention and impressed by his intellect and confidence. As James and I healed from the trauma, our career trajectory shifted. James received an offer from a competitor with significant advancement opportunities. Richard encouraged him to take it, even though it meant losing a valuable employee. Never let loyalty hold you back from growth, he advised. I admired that attitude. With James at his new company, I found myself connecting with Richard more independently. He asked my advice on an investment property, impressed with my financial acumen. We occasionally met for lunch to discuss business matters. James knew about these meetings and encouraged them, grateful for Richard's continued mentorship of both of us. 8 months after the incident, as we now called it, the final act of Ellie's self-destruction occurred. She was fired after showing up intoxicated to an important client meeting. Without her impressive salary, she couldn't maintain her expensive apartment. Her reputation made finding comparable employment difficult. She exhausted her savings quickly. My parents called me in November, their voices strained. Ellie needs a place to stay, my mother explained. Just temporarily, until she gets back on her feet. And you're calling me because? Our house is being renovated, my father said quickly. The guest room is torn apart. It would just be for a month or two. I laughed bitterly. You want me to take in the sister who tried to destroy my relationship and ruin my boyfriend's career? Are you serious right now? She's family, my mother insisted. She made a terrible mistake, but she's suffering. So was I reminded them. When you both immediately took her side without a shred of evidence. When you called me cruel for not believing her obvious lies. We've apologized for that, my father said stiffly. No, you haven't. You've explained and justified and minimized, but you've never actually apologized. The conversation ended poorly. I refused to house Ellie, and my parents were shocked by my callousness. Some patterns never change. Later that evening, I recounted the conversation to Richard over dinner. James was away at a conference. Richard listened thoughtfully, swirling his wine. "You know," he said finally, "I've watched you handle this entire situation with remarkable grace and strength. Most people would have been destroyed by what your sister did, but you've emerged stronger." I blushed at the compliment. "I had help. You and James." "James is a good man," Richard agreed. "But he's not the reason you survived this. That was all you." He reached across the table, briefly touching my hand. "Your parents and sister severely underestimated you. I never will." That moment, his hand on mine, his words of respect rather than pity, shifted something between us. I felt it immediately, a dangerous awareness that made me pull my hand away. Richard noticed my reaction and changed the subject smoothly, but the connection remained, unspoken but undeniable. Over the following weeks, I grappled with my complicated feelings. James remained my partner, my rock, the man who had stood by me through nightmare. But Richard saw something in me that even James sometimes missed, a steely core of determination, a sharp intelligence I'd often downplayed to avoid outshining others. Where James loved me despite my perceived flaws, Richard seemed to admire me because of my strengths. The situation with Ellie deteriorated further. She moved in with our parents after all, once their renovations were complete enough to accommodate her. My mother called with updates I hadn't asked for, painting Ellie as a victim of circumstance rather than the architect of her own downfall. I listened without comment, the old resentment simmering beneath my polite responses. Just before Christmas, nearly a year after Ellie's original pregnancy lie, my sister appeared at my workplace. She looked terrible, thin, unkempt, with dark circles under her eyes. Security called me to the lobby, where she waited clutching a small bag. 5 minutes, I said coldly. That's all you get. For once, Ellie didn't launch into dramatics. I lost everything, she said quietly. My job, my apartment, my friends. I'm on antidepressants now. I'm sorry you're struggling, I replied, meaning it despite everything. But I don't understand what you want from me. A second chance. A place to stay away from mom and dad. They're driving me crazy with their hovering and questions. I stared at her, incredulous. You think I would let you live with me? After what you did? We're sisters, she said, as if that explained everything. Family forgives. Not this, I told her firmly. Not trying to steal my boyfriend with a fake pregnancy. Not trying to destroy his reputation and career. Not lying to our parents and turning them against me. Some things can't be forgiven, Ellie. She began to cry, attracting attention from people passing through the lobby. I have nowhere else to go. Mom and Dad are talking about kicking me out if I don't find a job by January. Please, just a couch for a few weeks. No. You've always been the responsible one, she tried, switching tactics. The one who fixes problems. This problem is yours to fix, I said, standing up. I'm not responsible for the consequences of your actions. As I walked away, she called after me, You're enjoying this, aren't you? Seeing me suffer while you're doing so well? I turned back. I take no pleasure in your pain, Ellie. But I won't sacrifice my peace to ease it. That night, I recounted the encounter to James over dinner. He listened sympathetically, holding my hand across the table. You did the right thing, he assured me. She hasn't really changed if she's still trying to manipulate you with guilt. I nodded, but a part of me wondered if I was being too harsh. This doubt must have shown on my face, because James squeezed my hand. Hey, he said gently, you're allowed to protect yourself from people who hurt you, even family. Especially family. I know. It's just hard. That's because you're a good person, he smiled. Which is why I love you. Later that week, Richard invited us to his annual Christmas party. His modern penthouse apartment was spectacular, decorated with tasteful holiday accents that managed to be festive without looking tacky. The guest list was impressive, local business leaders, a state senator, several prominent architects and developers. Your boss really moves in high circles, I whispered to James as we accepted champagne from a passing server. He's more than my boss now, James reminded me. He's our friend. Throughout the evening, Richard made a point of introducing me to influential people, highlighting my financial expertise in a way that made me stand taller. She has incredible instincts for investment opportunities, he told the CEO of a regional bank. You should hear her analysis of the downtown development project. I found myself engaged in stimulating conversations about business and finance, my opinions sought and valued. It was intoxicating to be taken so seriously, to have my intelligence be the first thing people noticed about me. Near midnight, as the party wound down, Richard found me alone on his balcony, taking a moment of quiet away from the crowd. You were the star of the evening, he said, joining me at the railing. Everyone's asking about you. I laughed. I doubt that. It's true. Victoria from Landmark Investments wants to talk to you about a position in their analysis department. I turned to him in surprise. She does. I may have mentioned your background, he admitted. Your current position is well beneath your capabilities. The cool December air suddenly felt charged with possibility. Thank you for believing in me, I said quietly. Richard studied me for a long moment. I see in you what you are only beginning to see in yourself. Strength. Brilliance. Potential. Our eyes held, and in that moment, I felt a connection I couldn't deny or explain. But before either of us could speak again, James appeared at the balcony door. There you are, he smiled. Ready to head out? I'm on call tomorrow. The moment broke. Richard stepped back smoothly, raising his glass in a casual toast. Thank you both for coming. We'll talk soon about that landmark opportunity. The drive home was quiet, my mind replaying the balcony conversation. James seemed tired but content, humming along to the radio. I loved him deeply, his steadiness, his kindness, the way he'd stood by me through the worst year of my life. But something had awakened in me that night, an ambition and self-recognition I couldn't ignore. The new year arrived with unexpected developments. I interviewed with Landmark Investments and received an offer with a salary that nearly took my breath away. James was thrilled for me, celebrating with champagne and flowers. I always knew you were meant for bigger things, he said, genuinely proud. Meanwhile, my parents called with news about Ellie. She had checked herself into a treatment program for depression and alcohol dependency. The therapists say she's been self-medicating her shame, my mother explained. They think this could be a turning point for her. I expressed appropriate concern but maintained my boundaries. I hope she gets the help she needs, I said politely. Please keep me updated. It was the most I could offer. As winter melted into spring, my new position at Landmark consumed my energy and attention. The work was challenging and rewarding, pushing me to grow professionally in ways my previous job never had. Richard continued to be a mentor, occasionally joining me for lunch to discuss industry trends and opportunities. During one such lunch in April, he seemed unusually contemplative. I've been offered a position in Chicago, he announced. CEO of a development firm there. It's the opportunity I've been waiting for. My heart sank unexpectedly. That's wonderful, I managed. When would you leave? June, most likely. He paused, watching me carefully. There's another component to the offer. They're looking to expand their investment division as well. They need someone with fresh perspective and sharp analytical skills. I set down my fork. Are you offering me a job? I'm suggesting a possibility. One worth considering. His eyes held mine. You've outgrown this city professionally. Chicago would challenge you in all the right ways. I can't just leave, I protested, though part of me thrilled at the idea. James is here, his new position is going well. Richard nodded. Of course. It's merely something to think about. But I did more than think about it. I obsessed over it. The opportunity was exceptional: better title, better salary, better growth potential. I would be starting at a level that might take me 5 more years to reach at Landmark. And Chicago, a vibrant, sophisticated city with energy and opportunities our mid-sized hometown couldn't match. When I finally discussed it with James, his reaction surprised me. I had expected resistance, perhaps even accusation given my growing friendship with Richard. Instead, he was thoughtful. "It's an amazing opportunity," he acknowledged. "One you deserve." "But what about us? Your job is here." James took my hands in his. "My company has offices nationwide. I could request a transfer to Chicago." "You do that? Leave everything behind?" "For you? Yes." His voice was certain. "I love you. I want you to have everything you deserve, including this career opportunity." Tears filled my eyes. "I love you too. And if we're being completely honest," he added with a small smile, "I've always wanted to live in a bigger city. This could be good for both of us." 2 weeks later, James presented me with a ring, a simple but elegant diamond that caught the light perfectly. "I was planning this anyway," he assured me when I asked if the proposal was related to our potential move. "The timing just feels right. Before we start a new chapter together." I said yes without hesitation. Whatever confused feelings I might have had about Richard, they couldn't compare to the solid foundation James and I had built. We celebrated with a small dinner, just the two of us, planning our future together. The next day, I called Richard to share our news and formally accept the Chicago opportunity, as a happily engaged woman with a fiancé who would be joining me in the move. If there was disappointment in Richard's congratulations, he masked it well. "James is a fortunate man," he said warmly. "I'm delighted for you both." As summer approached, our plans accelerated. James secured his transfer, we found an apartment in Chicago, and I gave notice at Landmark. Throughout this whirlwind of change, I maintained minimal contact with my family. My mother called occasionally with updates on Ellie, who had completed her treatment program and was living in a halfway house, attending regular therapy and looking for work. "She asks about you," my mother mentioned during one call. "She seems genuinely remorseful." "That's good to hear," I replied noncommittally. "I hope her recovery continues." A week before our scheduled move, Ellie called me directly, the first time she'd dared to do so in months. "Against my better judgment," I answered. "I heard you're moving to Chicago," she said without preamble. "Mom told me about the engagement too. Congratulations." "Thank you," I replied, waiting for the request or manipulation that was surely coming. Instead, she surprised me. "I'm not calling to ask for anything. I wanted to tell you that I'm sorry. Really sorry. What I did was unforgivable, and I don't expect you to forgive me. But I want you to know that I understand now how badly I hurt you." Her voice sounded different, calmer, clearer, without the dramatic cadences I associated with her manipulations. But I'd been fooled before. "I appreciate you saying that," I said cautiously. "The therapists helped me see how jealous I've always been of you," she continued. "You were always the strong one, the one who had it together. I was just better at performing and taking credit." I remained silent, unsure how to respond to this unexpected vulnerability. "Anyway," she continued when I didn't speak, "I won't take up more of your time. I just wanted to wish you happiness in Chicago. You deserve it after everything I put you through." After we hung up, I sat for a long time, turning the conversation over in my mind. Was this a genuine breakthrough or another performance? I couldn't be sure, and I wasn't ready to risk finding out. The weekend before our move, my parents invited us for a farewell dinner. James encouraged me to accept. "Closure might be good," he suggested. "We don't have to stay long." I agreed reluctantly, with one condition: Ellie couldn't be there. My mother promised she wouldn't be. The dinner was stilted but civil. My parents seemed genuinely proud of my new position, asking thoughtful questions about the company and our new apartment. My father even pulled James aside at one point, and later James told me he had apologized for believing Ellie's lies and thanked him for standing by me. As we were preparing to leave, my mother pressed a small box into my hands. "A going-away present," she explained. "And a peace offering." Inside was a delicate silver bracelet I recognized immediately. It had belonged to my grandmother, who had died when I was 14. I had always admired it, but it had been given to Ellie on her 16th birthday. "Ellie wanted you to have it," my mother said quietly. "She insisted." I fingered the intricate links, a complicated emotion rising in my throat. "Thank her for me," I managed. On the drive home, James glanced at the bracelet now adorning my wrist. "Are you okay?" I considered the question carefully. "I think so. I'm not ready to forgive and forget. Maybe I never will be completely. But I'm ready to move forward." He nodded, understanding as always. That's all anyone can ask. Our move to Chicago went smoothly. Richard had already relocated and helped us navigate the city, introducing us to colleagues and friends. My new position was everything he had promised: challenging, respected, with clear paths for advancement. James thrived in his company's larger office, quickly establishing himself as a valuable team member. One evening in late August, as we enjoyed dinner on our small balcony overlooking the city lights, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. She had sent a photo of Ellie in a coffee shop uniform, smiling tentatively behind the counter. "First week at new job," the caption read. "One day at a time." James noticed my expression. "Everything okay?" I showed him the photo. "It's strange," I admitted. "Part of me is still so angry. But another part hopes she really is getting better." He nodded. "You can hold both those feelings at once. That's allowed." "I don't think I'll ever trust her again," I said. "But maybe someday we can be civil." "Someday," he agreed. "When you're ready." I slipped the bracelet off my wrist, holding it up to catch the setting sun. "I think I'm keeping this, though. It looks better on me anyway." James laughed, and I joined him, feeling lighter than I had in a long time. As the Chicago skyline glowed golden in the fading light, I finally understood something important: my sister's lies hadn't destroyed me, they had freed me. From family expectations, from old patterns, from my own self-doubt. Richard joined us for dinner the following week, raising a toast to our engagement. "To new beginnings," he said, his eyes meeting mine briefly before turning to include James. "May you both find everything you're looking for in Chicago." "We already have," I replied, squeezing James's hand under the table. And for the first time in my life, I truly believed it.